The Oklahoma City Thunder draw the Dallas Mavericks in round number 2. What are some storylines to watch in this series?
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and Inside the Thunder beat writer Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Check out InsideTheThunder.com. And on today's show, we're talking about the Thunder Mavericks playoff series. A lot to get into in this series and a lot of stuff coming up in the future as well. Our Locked On Mavericks, Locked On Thunder crossover coming soon. Andrew Schlecht returns to preview this series and more. But the Thunder draw the Dallas Mavericks as the Mavericks get a closeout win on Friday against the Clippers, ending it in 6. The Thunder, of course, swept the Pelicans to get to this point. This series is going to be fun. This series, for all intents and purposes, everything's in line. Maxi Kleber is out for this series. It's a massive blow to Dallas. I mean, that really hurts them. Playoff Maxi is a real thing. What he's able to do, especially what he would have been able to do in this series whenever the Mavericks want to go small to match the Thunder's small ball lineups, would have been huge. No longer an option. It sounds like from all the reports and the verbiage used, that Maxi's likely done no matter how far the Mavericks go in the playoffs, and especially for this season, for this series, I should say. OKC is fully healthy on the other end, and they've been off for a week. The Mavericks, though, are in that sweet spot of they ended their series on Friday, got the day off Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and so the rest versus rust theory will certainly be tested in this series. A series that sees only one stretch of consecutive off days, and that's between games 5 and 6. You get 2 days off. Every other game this series will be played every other day. Every other day, really, from here on out, starting on Tuesday, it'll be Mavericks Thunder until the series is won. This is the 4th playoff meeting between these two teams, as the Thunder have a 2-1 advantage right now, historically. But I think that this series is going to spark a massive rivalry. You've already seen the comments on YouTube, the discourse on social media. It's trending towards some bad blood. And these are two teams who are going to lean into the emotion. These are two fan bases who are going to lean into the emotion. These are two communities, like Oklahomans and Texans, do not like one another. And as you fly back and forth down the highway, things are going to get heated. This is a unique blend, too, of geographically, both sides already hate each other. And unlike in those previous playoff matchups where the Thunder, fan base was still so, relatively new, of course, and the Maverick superstar and Dirk is unhateable. No one in their right mind can hate Dirk, even any fan base that had to deal with him, especially even Miami, who had to deal with him in 2006 and saw that 2011 championship run from Dallas. Nobody can hate Dirk. You can respect him. You can think he's a heck of a player. You can hate to play him, but you can't hate Dirk. Not the case for Luka Doncic. Luka, on the other hand, is very hateable if you're the opposing team, watching him just dominate games. And so that's what you need. That's the recipe, is having players who will buy into it, having two fan bases who will buy into it, and having history now. This will start history, because I don't see any way that this series ends before 6-7 games. And so when you see deep playoff runs and deep playoff series, that's how you can stack days, if you want to put it that way, in a way Thunder fans will understand, stack moments that get to a rivalry. And that's, I think, the biggest storyline to see. In this era where people are always concerned or always upset that there's no rivalries and there's no bad blood and there's no enemies in the NBA, I am very confident that this will become a marquee matchup. This will become a marquee event on the NBA calendar as two teams that are set up to have success for a while, and two teams and fan bases that are not going to like each other. They've tried to push the Mavericks Suns rivalry, which to an extent is a rivalry, especially for the fans. I think that this will go even further past that, especially with all the key members projecting to stay put and stay together in this circle of a series. But beyond the rivalry aspect on the court, there's a billion different directions that you can go with this series. The first one has to be the headliners, the stars. It's a star-driven league after all. It's SGA, it's Luka Doncic, and it's their killer games. Like, there's a reason why both of these guys have had back-to-back top 10 finishes in MVP. Last year, Luka finished 8th, Shai finished 5. This year, they both are top 3, along with, of course, Jokic. We'll see who wins the award and who finishes technically 2nd and 3rd eventually. But these are two of the brightest stars in the NBA. And they both project to have absolutely killer series. With no disrespect to Lou Dort, no disrespect to Derrick Jones Jr., who are both great options, and Luka has even credited Lou Dort as a top 3 defender in the NBA. These are stars, and these are what stars do. They go out there and have phenomenal games. You got to worry about Luka's knee to an extent. I mean, he still averaged 30 points, but to an extent, like, there's an aspect of his knee that's just not going to get better, and he'll have to just play through. But ultimately, I think that these two guys are going to be able to pick their stat line, and they're going to put on a show in terms of scoring, in terms of carrying the offensive load. And so from there, you trickle it down to where's the next advantage, and the next advantage, and the next advantage after that. Luka has certainly proven more in the playoffs than SGA has. And Luka, as I said throughout the duration of the regular season, and as you were looking at the standings, Luka's the kind of guy who can go win you 2 games in a playoff series by himself. And you win 2 out of 2 games and you're halfway to 4, that really takes some of the pressure off you. I still believe that. I still believe that there's going to be games where Luka, just by sheer nature of being one of the best we've ever seen, is going to hit a couple step backs that are so well defended, they're nearly fouls on Lou Dort, and he just splashes them home. I also believe that Shai will hit tough buckets as well. And so as the social media war, rages on, I think that these two players, who are just ultra competitors, will be trying to one-up each other on the floor, and that will be some of the most entertaining basketball that you'll be able to consume. This will be one of the best series of the postseason. And so as those two guys can kind of pick their stat line, I think that both will have a great series. You move on to their co-stars, Kyrie and J-Dub. I think that these two guys are going to be linked together in more ways than one. Of course, they're both going to be tasked with being the number 2 option offensively. Kyrie's, just like Luka, more proven. Kyrie's hit big shots in the finals, much less what he did in round 1, where he really steadied the ship for the Mavericks and helped them a lot of times offensively, especially as Luka's dealing with a knee injury and you're battling the Clippers. But J-Dub, while he does not have the lengthy past, he does have the present, where he's shown throughout the 82-game season to be one of the best fourth quarter scorers in the NBA, to be a clutch time player who can rise up and hit tough mid-range shots, and to be a formidable co-star next to one of the best scorers in the league. How much does that carry over into the playoffs? In round 1, it certainly carried over, and that's a really good defensive team for all the knocks on the Pelicans, for the fact that you were able to sweep them, for the fact that it wasn't the best playoff feel in New Orleans, to put it lightly. One thing that did travel was the Pelicans defense, and one thing that did matter was how J-Dub handled that Pelicans defense, especially in a closeout game, game 4 on the road. You got to feel good about J-Dub and feel good about his ability to keep pace offensively. But another layer for this is that I believe that the Thunder are going to put Ludor on Luka Doncic, and they're going to put J-Dub on Kyrie. Now, of course, the Thunder are going to switch, and the Thunder are going to use their length and athleticism, but I think that J-Dub will be tasked with defending Kyrie, who we know can hit some frustrating shots, who we know that for Luka and for Kyrie and for Shai, there is no true defending them and just moving on, right? You're hoping at best to create a speed bump for these guys. But J-Dub defending Kyrie will be a massive story. Can you make a few game-changing plays? Because these games in this series will be decided in the margins, I fully believe. I know the Mavericks have played mostly in blowouts one way or the other. And both these teams only had 2 games in their last series that were played within 10 points. And for the Thunder, it was really only 1 because technically game 4 was 8 points instead of 10. But like they controlled that game at the end at the 2-minute mark whenever J-Dub put the Thunder up 10. But nonetheless, both these teams have been able to swell leads against other teams. And in this regular season series, I don't think that we can take much from it. We've seen some blowouts. But I think that this series will be decided by an average of 5 points a game. And when that's the case, it comes down to very minor plays in the moment that end up swinging things. It's a third quarter steal and score that when you win by 2, you can draw back to that moment. And so J-Dub is going to have the opportunity to make massive plays on the biggest stage against a guy like Kyrie Irving. How is he going to handle that chance? How is he going to handle that opportunity? How will Shai and Luka and Kyrie and J-Dub fare? That's the first question that has to be answered. Because those are the biggest components of these two teams. Moving forward now, you look at the defense, you look at the complementary players, you look at Chet Holmgren, you look at Josh Giddey. We'll do all that coming up. But first, I want to say right now, about our good friends over at Monopoly Go, folks, go ahead and go download Monopoly Go for free in the App Store or Google Play Store because it's a lot of fun. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments. You can work together to build each other's boards, and the more you win together, the more amazing prizes you unlock. But you also can let out some of that competitive side and play against them, pulling off bank heists and disrupting their board as well. So however you want to play, you can play at Monopoly Go. There's always new and exciting ways to play and challenges and tournaments and unique mini games to really help you enjoy Monopoly Go. It's a mobile twist on the classic board game. And with the new timed events that are always coming out, you can always find something to do at Monopoly Go. I'm already a level 1,000 on Monopoly Go, so go there right now and go download it for free on the App Store or Google Play Store. Game on with Monopoly Go. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Defending the pick and roll will be huge for the Thunder. They cannot win this series without keying in on their pick and roll defense. The Mavericks are elite in the pick and roll. Luka's in the 93rd percentile. Kyrie's in the 84th percentile. And what makes the Mavericks so difficult as a cover in the pick and roll is how prolific both those guys are. Because when you're defending the pick and roll, it puts your big man in a tough position. And you see it often. You saw it a lot, even in that game where it was only Kyrie and it was in Oklahoma City on TNT, where Kyrie and Gafford are on the pick and roll, and you're seeing a guy like Chet shade more toward the ball handler to try to help on Kyrie, and then being a step slow to get to Gafford. Now, sometimes Chet Holmgren, because of his timing and length, he's going to block those shots while being behind Gafford and get stops. Other times, Gafford's going to get easy points generated from how much attention is required to the guards. But fighting over screens and making those entry passes hard with help side rotations and allowing Chet to make some great plays at the rim will be key, because the Mavericks will go to the pick and roll over and over and over again. That's how their team is constructed, which leads into the second storyline involving perimeter players, or I should say complementary players. The Thunder have to win the play finisher battle. I fully believe that the Thunder have a more talented and versatile bench, and by bench, you're counting the guys who play off of Shai, who play off of Jalen, who play off of Chet. You're counting the guys who play off of Luka, off of Kyrie. What the Thunder are able to do with their guys of Wiggins and Wallace and Joe, what they're able to do with their guys is so much more than what Dallas can do with their bench. And by bench, again, it includes Gafford, it includes Lively, it includes PJ Washington, it includes Tim Hardaway Jr. For those guys to get hot, it comes and stems from being overzealous on the stars and then letting them hit open shots and letting them get into a rhythm. If you stay stuck to the Mavericks' complementary pieces and let the stars just go to work, those complementary pieces are never there to help boost things up and help rise the tide. Yes, Luka and Kyrie are going to pick their stat line. They'll do that no matter what. No matter how much attention you give them, they're going to be awesome. But their complementary pieces cannot go generate for themselves or for others. So you almost wonder if you just put up a fight with of course, J-Dub on Kyrie and Lou Dort on Luka, Wallace, getting charged with either one of them as well, whenever he's in the game, Shai pitching in as well, and then focus on limiting everyone else and staying tied to everyone else. Because the Mavericks pieces cannot do it themselves. They have to be spoon-fed on rolls or be just blatantly wide open as catch-and-shoot targets. You can make the case either way. You can make the case of just force Luka and Kyrie to go score 100 points combined, which they're capable of doing, or give them the attention and hope that you get a few bad shooting nights from PJ Washington and the like. With that becomes the mismatch game. That's what the playoff series are all about, no matter when you're watching the playoffs. It's been a tale as old as time, a song as old as rhyme. You need to hunt mismatches and find them. The big man position will be the biggest storyline to watch in terms of generating reactions. Because if Luka Doncic just dominates this game in this series, or if Shai or if Kyrie just dominate this series, yes, it'll be cool and it'll be awesome, as NBA fans. But it's not going to be like just this unbelievable, shocking aspect of it. When Gafford gets a massive dunk over Chet, that's going to generate a storyline and a headline and a clip and memes and jokes. And it will happen. Gafford is absolutely going to go through the chest of Chet Holmgren and get multiple dunks. Lively is going to be the beneficiary of rolls and lobs, and it'll be awesome. And so as people fall in love with that idea, and those things will happen, they forget that neither one of them can guard Chet Holmgren on the other end. Because Chet Holmgren can catch and shoot, just as a stationary catch and shoot guy. He can step into them as a trailer behind the offense. He's dominant on screens, whether rolling to the rim and setting up that lob connection with J-Dub or picking and popping for three. And most of all, he can put the ball on the deck, go into that spin move, and hit a fadeaway. And so it's important not to fall in love with the flash play and fall in love with the substance. And the substance will be that Chet Holmgren will net more than what Gafford and Lively will, although Gafford and Lively are going to create the plays that get people talking. You've seen that dunk from Gafford on Zubac 100 times since Game 6. He'll have more of those dunks on Chet Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. But in those games, I feel pretty confident that Chet will have an overall greater impact than Lively. It won't necessarily result in the overall greater impact on social media, but it will be an overall greater impact on the court. But to have that happen, You have to have an eager Chet to knock down threes and take threes. And you have to have your guards looking for Chet and ball handlers looking for Chet on the pick and pops and pick and rolls. But that is a mismatch you absolutely can take advantage of. And that's a storyline that you cannot fall for the flash. Every Gafford dunk that is from him, putting a body on Chet and slamming it home cannot result in a collective freak out over the Thunder's style of play and lack of size and what they did at the deadline. It will, but it shouldn't. Because this style of play has gotten the Thunder 57 wins. This style of play is good enough to beat Dallas. And I think that this style of play will still net positively for OKC. And by that same token, speaking of mismatches, you have to force the Mavericks to become as athletic as you are. If you're OKC, your youth and athleticism is your advantage. Start actions early in the shot clock and often. Spread them out in a 5-out shell and attack with screens, with cutting off ball. Make them move, make them switch, make them play on their heels. That's the bread and butter of this Thunder team. That's what they've done all season long. It is a unique offense because it's a little bit of a hybrid offense of like, yes, Shai plays a lot in isolation. The Thunder technically play a lot in what you would categorize as isolation. But even in those isolation moments, the other guys aren't just standing around. The other guys are getting people moving, are getting defenses confused and needing to communicate and forcing them to break down on the back end, which does open things up for Shai and the like, even whenever they are the ball dominant ones. But continuing to be athletic and be fast, while fast break points are premium in the playoffs, part of the pace that you can create is just self-induced in the half court. Again, starting your actions early in the shot clock. That's where you can find the mismatch and success if you're OKC. The Clippers were best defended by the Mavericks whenever they had Kawhi and they had a more methodical, unathletic, if you will, slow, if you will, half-court offense. So it'll be key that the Thunder utilize these matchups to their advantage. Coming up, predictions for this series and more keys to the series, like Josh Giddey minutes and what we can take away from the regular season. But first, I want to say right now, but our good friends over at DoorDash. Check out DoorDash today because they're awesome. And DoorDash is great because I think that you obviously know what DoorDash can do for you in terms of getting you a late night snack or providing dinner on a day maybe you don't feel like cooking. But did you know that, like, beyond just satisfying your sweet tooth, DoorDash can bring you out fantastic items like gifts for your significant other or someone important in your life. And they can help you with, like, if you forgot an anniversary, if you forgot a special celebration day and you need a bouquet of flowers dropped off, you need some jewelry brought to your house, maybe a nice wardrobe piece. Like, DoorDash can bring those things too, And so you can get 50% off your next order, up to $15 when you spend 15 or more on your next flower arrangement, convenience store needs, grocery needs, retail order. Right now at Locked On NBA is the code for DoorDash. Locked On NBA is the code when using DoorDash today. Terms and conditions apply. So make sure you get out there right now and check it out today at DoorDash. Locked On NBA is the code for 50% off of up to $15 whenever you spend 15 or more. Again, they have flowers and jewelry and convenience and grocery and retail right now at DoorDash. Locked On NBA is the code. Terms and conditions, of course, apply. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. The Oklahoma City Thunder taking on the Dallas Mavericks in round number 2. Josh Giddey's minutes will be a massive deal. He returns to Dallas on Saturday afternoon for the first time since his lowest point of his season, which came in Dallas in the afternoon on a Saturday. whenever the Thunder were blown out by 35 points, and Josh Giddey put up 3 for 14, 3 for 19 overall in that game, and just was dreadful. It was the fever pitch conversation of Josh Giddey's criticism. Since then, Josh Giddey has really turned around his season, which cultivated into and culminated into him playing the Pelicans and turning in back-to-back 4 3-pointer nights in New Orleans for the Thunder to get a sweep. Along with that, and those shooting nights from against New Orleans, he played some really good team defense all series. But this is a different ballgame. It's interesting for the Giddey aspect because throughout his career, he's played his biggest games whenever the lights are the brightest and whenever the stakes are high. Ironically enough, they've always been highest against New Orleans, which is the team that he's dominated the best. So this is his first test of like a big game that's not New Orleans. And I think that Dallas will be a matchup that deserves some context, honestly. Because since March 1st, Giddey's been awesome. 15 points a game, 7 boards a game, 6 assists a game, 1.1 stocks a game, shooting efficiently, shooting a career best 69% at the rim. Like, he's been awesome. He's been a really good team defender. He's mixed it up on the glass and helped the Thunder out in that aspect. Like, he's been really, really good. By that same token, the context that might be required for Giddey in this series. I look back at that game on TNT, the second to last game against the Mavericks. When Josh Giddey started that game, he started producing in the first half. He was a positive player for the Thunder in the first half. The issue is the Thunder are so good that he was a positive player for the Thunder in the first half. The big adjustment from Jason Kidd was still, okay, I know Josh Giddey's played well this game, but second half, don't even remotely go out there and contest him. Don't even remotely go out there and pay him mind offensively. That fully takes him off the ball. That fully takes him away from the offense. And that relegates him to this corner shooting role that A, isn't fair to him to leave him out there in that aspect. And B, you have guys who can fill that role, frankly, better than Josh Giddey. And that's not a knock on Josh Giddey. He was technically played off the floor in that second to last Mavericks game, in a game that he individually played well, but from a opposing strategical standpoint, you had to get him out of there. And so how do the Josh Giddey minutes shake out this series? Are the Mavericks still willing to do that? I think that they will be, because it's a relatively sound strategic plan. Even when Josh Giddey's playing good basketball, in this pick your poison offense, and Mark always talks about how you have to give something up. Would you rather give up Giddey corner threes, and maybe he hits them, as he blitzed in 4 threes in back-to-back games in games 3 and 4 against New Orleans, but you also get to crowd the paint and make life tougher on Shai and J-Dub and the rest of the crew. Would you rather do that or try to play heads up and just go across the board, match up 1 through 5, and allow Shai to have one-on-one battles, allow Dub to have one-on-one battles, allow Josh to be tightly contested and use his size on smaller guards, and allow Chet to abuse traditional 5s. So I think that this is an area that Jason Kidd leaned into. The Thunder, to their credit, have an ability to just course correct that immediately and take it away, take that small advantage away from the Mavericks. But in terms of just Giddey's raw minutes, what does it look like? And it can be to no fault of his own. The storyline that would only be pertinent, I think, for Thunder fans, but is still important, is the emotional gaps of this series. The Thunder swept the Pelicans. The Thunder have had the Pelicans' number. The Thunder have played well in that building before. Everything that the Thunder did against New Orleans in the first round, they've done before. They've won a postseason game in New Orleans before last year in the play-in. They've handled their business against New Orleans in the regular season and have played well against them. They've played Valanciunas off the floor before. They've done all those things before. Josh Giddey has shot well in that building before. They've done it all. This series will be entirely new. You're going to go deep in this series. Spoiler alert, I don't think that either side can expect a sweep. So you're going to go deeper. You're going to lose a game this series, flat out. You're going to give up more than 92 points in a game this series, flat out. You're going to play in fantastic environments, both home and road. These games are going to mean more. They're going to have more emotion behind it. You're going to play better players. No offense to the Pelicans, you're going to play Luka, one of the best scorers we've ever seen. You're going to play Kyrie, one of the best players we've ever seen. and ball handlers and unique scores. Like, this is going to be a stage that you've got to be ready for. To the Thunder's credit, they've been ready for it every step of the way. This team is uncommon in the sense of how mature they are. I think that they're more basketball mature than Dallas is in a tight game. But you got to go prove it on the biggest stage, biggest moments. How do they handle it? And raising the question doesn't mean anything good or bad. I think that they'll handle it very well, but you've got to go do it. And then I've lost count of how many storylines we're at, but the last one before we get into our predictions, it's interesting to see a Western Conference semifinals game where the regular season does not matter one iota. The Thunder won the regular season 3-1. That's great. But in that, you saw a 30-0 run given up by the Thunder where they still won. You saw a blowout, unbelievable loss on Saturday afternoon, which, credit to the Mavericks, they won by 35 points, and they were awesome. Their first game with their at home with their newly acquired pieces. The crowd was rocking. Like, that was awesome for them. But I don't think even the most homer of Homer Mavericks fans believes that they're 35 points better than OKC. So, like, I don't really buy into that, right? You saw a blowout win for OKC on the last game of the season whenever nobody played for Dallas, so that doesn't even matter one bit. And then a tight game on TNT where the Thunder won, but Luka didn't play. Only one game did Luka and Kyrie play together. And there's no true data points to draw from this regular season affair where you played 4 times and none of them really mattered. So that doesn't really help you draw much conclusions for the predictions, which we're going to get into right now. I think that home court advantage is going to be huge. I think that the Thunder are ready and built for this moment despite their inexperience on paper, despite their birth certificate. I think that they're ready. No matter who you think will win, I think that you'd be foolish to pick it in less than 6. But I think that this series is going to go 7. The Mavericks have bona fide, absolute, unbelievable killers on their team in Luka and Kyrie. I think that the Thunder are the more well-rounded team, though, top to bottom of this roster. I think the Thunder are overwhelmingly the better coached team. And I have the Thunder with Game 7 in their building, winning in 7 games to advance to the Western Conference Finals. I picked that before the postseason began. I have not seen anything to sway my opinion against that and changing that pick. So I have Thunder in 7 over Dallas to go to the Western Conference Finals. This is just the beginning, though, of this series' coverage. We're going to have our Locked On Mavericks crossover on Monday. We're going to have Andrew Schleck to preview the series on Tuesday. Tuesday afternoon, we're going to have keys to the game for game number 1. On Wednesday, recap of game 1. Thursday, key adjustments from game 1. Friday, game 2 recap with, of course, Thursday coming keys to the game as well before the game. So what you're going to expect is a pod every single day, Monday through Sunday, and keys to the game bonus pod before every single game. But it's going to be a lot of fun to have Locked On Mavs, Nick Inkstead on the pod tomorrow, Andrew Schlecht of The Athletic on the pod on Tuesday, and of course, all of our regular series affairs and recaps and podcasts and mailbags and everything you want to hear. It's another series where I'll be at every single game. Just a huge blessing and a huge just break in terms of the schedule. You will not find very many opportunities in the Western Conference in Oklahoma to get to every single game via car. But here we are. And so going to drive down to Dallas for the series. I'm sure a lot of you fans are planning to do that as well. It'll be fun. It'll be a rivalry that I think will have a boiling point and a tipping point in this series. And we'll be all along to see it unfold. Until tomorrow, as we are joined by Nick Inkstead to preview this series from both sides, be good and be good to